All right, hi everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today. And if you're, checking out the recording, thanks so much for checking out the recording. Today we're going to be talking about the accessibility to Burnout Pipeline. Is my screen sharing okay? We're all good. Think so? Cool. Awesome. Um, Great. So before I start today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that I am presenting to you today on the unceded ancestral lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. You can learn more about the Indigenous land you are currently on by visiting native-land.ca. If you are in Seattle, I do recommend you check out Real Rent Duwamish. Real Rent calls on people who live and work in Seattle to make rent payments to the Duwamish tribe. Though the city is named for the Duwamish leader chief Seattle thrives, the tribe has yet to be justly compensated for their lands, resources, and livelihood. You can do something about that today to stand in solidarity with the First Peoples of Seattle by paying real rent. All funds go to the Duwamish Tribal Services. And my last thing to talk about before we get going, there are a couple content warnings for today. We are going to be talking about mental health, workplace trauma, a little bit of ableism, just kind of ableism themes, and then PTSD. So without further ado, hi, I'm Shell Little. My gender pronouns are she, her. You can find me on Twitter at Shell E. Little. I am an independent senior accessibility specialist. I am an inclusive design consultant and a speaker. So I speak on disabilities related stuff, DE&I. I talk about cognitive accessibility, accessible design, inclusive design stuff, obviously, and game accessibility. I live in Seattle. I'm partnered, and my kids all have tails. So for all my talks, I like to show a roadmap. So for today, we're going to start with an intro, moving into burnout. Then we'll go to the pipeline, the main guts of this, and then talk about prevention and wrap up with a conclusion. So the introduction to the burnout, the first section is pretty short. Next to that, with the pipeline, kind of hits the third way through. Then at the probably like 3/4 way through is prevention and then conclusion. So the bulk of the content today will be in pipeline and prevention. So introduction. Let's get going on some definitions and some intro. So writing this talk was really difficult. I have never struggled to write a talk more than I have struggled to write this one. Like, this is the scariest thing that I've done professionally, and I've snuck into the Google party at CSUN, so I've done a lot of stuff, and this was really scary for me. So my voice might shake more than normal, I might ramble more than normal, and I'm gonna try to control my speed as much as possible, but I'm a bit anxious about this one. So workplace trauma is real, and your feelings are valid. I want to start off by saying that because a lot of times those feelings are diminished. So workplace trauma is real, and long-term workplace trauma is another recognized condition that can lead to things like PTSD. Individuals may be subjected to extreme levels of pressure, stress, or discrimination on a daily basis for years, and that suffering from that condition, it compounds over time. So don't let anybody tell you that your trauma from the workplace is not real, and your job shouldn't make you feel like shit. So why am I doing this talk? Well, first of all, I burnt out. For those of you who don't know, I burnt out really, really bad. So if I can save even one person from burning out or prevent somebody from going into the burnout levels that I went into, it'll be worth it for me. So I found that the more that I talked about burnout, the more that I realized I was absolutely not alone in the accessibility community. So I had the pleasure of speaking at A11YTO. That is my absolute favorite IRL conference that I get to attend. So I presented on a topic called Why We Suck at Hiring Accessible Designers and How to Fix It. And in the talk, I spoke about this really cool like training tool, hiring tool that I built. But I also mentioned burnout and mental health. So after my talk, do you think that anybody wanted to come up to me and talk to me about this really cool tool that I built? It's called the Cursed Wireframe. Absolutely not. No one wanted to talk about that. Everybody wanted to talk about burnout, mental health, and work issues. And that's kind of where I realized I was like, oh, we probably need to talk about this a bit because every single person came up to me and asked, what do I do? I'm struggling at work. I need help. I'm drowning. So the second reason that I wanted to give this talk was the work that we do is too important to lose more people to burnout. So according to data from LinkedIn, the number of job listings with accessibility in the title grew 78% in 2021 from the previous 12 months. Yet we're losing amazing minds and voices to burnout in this field. So not only are we losing our senior leadership, but we're also losing the generation that would eventually fill those shoes. So I went through and found, just the quick search on 100 accessibility job postings on the accessibility job posting website. And out of those jobs, 47 of those were senior level jobs. The demand is there, but we might not have people to fill those roles. And that's really scary. If we lose everybody who's currently doing the work, all that's left are people who are not qualified or have maybe never worked in accessibility before to take those senior level positions. And that's pretty scary. I have a tweet on the screen from Eric Eggert, and it says, and if we cannot afford one thing, that's people quitting accessibility because they are burned out, because they feel that they are ineffective and their work is worthless. I feel like that all the time. And I think a lot of us can relate to the spirit of this tweet. We don't want people to leave accessibility, but yet we're drowning in it. So let's get into section number 2, burnout. So, in general, mental health in the United States, specifically where I live, is not great. Not doing great. So, the mental health crisis from the pandemic is real. In 2021, we found that 4 out of 10 adults have reported symptoms of anxiety and depression. That's 4 times as many people pre-pandemic. Over 1/4 of mothers reported that the pandemic has a major impact on their mental health, and especially mothers who also work. And then visits to primary care for anxiety and depression increased 13% amongst kids. So, in general, I can just make the blanket statement we're not doing great. But specifically, people in accessibility, I feel like are disproportionately not doing great. So let's get into definitions. So to define burnout, like people talk about burnout all the time, but like what is it actually? So according to the Mayo Clinic, it is a special type of work-related stress, a state of physical or emotional exhaustion that involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and loss of personal identity. So it is soul crushing. I think that's such a great way to think about burnout. It's not feeling tired, it's not feeling run down. It is when you go over the edge, when you plummet into the pit. That is burnout. So, stress versus burnout. Stress is a normal response to situational pressure and demands with the knowledge of an end in sight. So, like right now, I'm pretty stressed out about this talk. Just, being live in front of people. That's a normal stress response. What's not normal is the fact that my body is struggling to know that like we're not in danger, everything's fine. So with burnout, it's a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. So in a stress format, emotional state is overactive, but in burnout, the emotional state is numb. For stress, it leads to exhaustion and fatigue, whereas burnout leads to a lack of purpose and motivation. And finally, with stress, feelings of relentlessness and urgency, but burnout is a feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. Oh my gosh, this is the one I'm really nervous about. So this is a little bit about my story, just to, I don't know, be vulnerable, I guess. So on the screen right now, I have 2 screenshots of just a really busy work day. I have 2 individual pictures of a Microsoft calendar, and I've got 3, 4 invites. I think on one I've got in one day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 22 invites on one day alone. So, like many of you, I worked a corporate job for a long time. I worked in the accessibility field and I was overworked and under-resourced. We all accept the mountain of tech debt when we start in accessibility, but even though my job, I had a ton of support staff, we had internal QA accessibility, I was still failed by upper management because of the amount of work that we were expected to get done. And it's always like, Shell, how'd you burn out? Well, maybe because I was working a full-time job and speaking full-time, and my work looked like that, and I had life stuff going on. So it's not like, I think a lot of people who, especially who saw how much I spoke in 2019, I think I did like 30 talks in 2019. No one's that shocked. But the burnout that I felt was specifically from work. That's where I can still speak corporate. I can still speak. I do still do corporate speaking engagements, but like going to a 9 to 5, that's where the panic lives. And for me, my manager had left to go to a different position, and that's when upper management should have stepped in to fill that gap. But it was on me, on my shoulders. So I made it clear, help, I'm drowning. And didn't really get much help. So on the screen right now, I have a meme of somebody's hand up, drowning, somebody reaching down, and instead of grabbing the hand to help them, they high five them and then let them drown. So on the screen, it says, help, I'm drowning, me. management reaching in. Management says, we're confident in your ability to figure it out. And then I just meet, LOL, drowning. So it's what it was like. I was pushed past the brink. I asked for help. I begged for help from upper management and was kind of given, you'll figure it out on your own. We don't really care about your team. You'll get there. We're hiring someone. They'll be here in like corporate time, 4 months. So not great. So something broke in me at that point where I was like, wow, I am really not doing okay. And the scary thing is burnout can cause apathy for your work. In extreme cases, that apathy bleeds into your real life. So due to my job and the continued stress and pressure, I developed a panic disorder, which is something that's new to me. I don't know exactly how to live with it. I'm trying to figure it out. So my body lost the ability to tell between life-threatening stress and regular stress. And then when you're living at a 10 of stress every single day, when the thing that's causing you that 10 of stress drops, your body finds ways to compensate for that extra stress. So while I was just at home doing things, I would still be having continuous panic attacks because my body was trying to make sure that we stayed at that 10 of stress because my body didn't know any better. I have a tweet on the screen right now of when I finally admitted and I gave up and I quit my job because I just couldn't do it. I did 2 burnout sabbatical, like little, retreats, FMLA leaves, but in the end, I needed to quit. And I did a thread about it on Twitter. But the fun thing is, this is from March, but I actually quit in January, and I couldn't even talk about it because I was embarrassed that I had to quit my job due to burnout because I thought it was my fault. So why is it so bad? Like, why is burnout so bad right now for a lot of people, maybe not even in the accessibility field, maybe beyond? Well, we're feeling this way because the systems of exploitation, like of exploitative labor, they're working as intended. So I highly recommend you check out the book, The Grind Culture Detox, Heal Yourself from the Poisonous Intersection of Racism, Capitalism, and the Need to Produce. Because things like grind culture, American capitalism, lack of workers' rights, white supremacy, and patriarchy absolutely are feeding in to make this storm even worse. Awesome. So let's talk about the burnout pipeline. So I say that, being an accessibility specialist is just a pipeline to burning out. It's true and not true, but let's get into that. So why are accessibility professionals at a higher risk than other professionals? Maybe let's just talk in tech specifically. Well, when you look up burnout factors and you look at research that's been done and compile a list of kind of the factors of burnout, the things that are like, these are the red flags, watch out for these. A lot of times they'll say, check how many of these apply to you. And when looking at those lists, I was checking 9 out of 10. Like, you're supposed to check maybe 1 or 2. So on the screen right now, I have a list of some of the major primary burnout factors. So the first one is lack of control or support from management, sense of futility and hopelessness, unclear and changing job expectations, unreasonable workload, and having to fight for a seat at the table. So those things probably feel pretty familiar for a lot of us who have worked in accessibility. So these factors are disproportionately affecting accessibility specialists because comically, those are just part of the job. So let's talk about lack of control. So lack of control was defined as an inability to influence decisions that affect your job, such as your schedule, assignments, or workload. What that looks like in IRL is being at the mercy of budgets, hire freezes, now layoffs, and asks from C-suite. On the screen right now, I have a tweet from Gerard Cohen, the former engineering manager of accessibility from Twitter. Everything they were working for, all the work they had done, all the people that had been passionately pouring in love to make Twitter a better platform got laid off. And all the work they did will never see the light of day. And that's kind of what it feels like sometimes for accessibility. Work on something and it gets canned, or you work on something and someone makes a change and breaks everything. So we sometimes feel like we're in a lack of control. We're just kind of being pushed by the waves. And lack of control and accessibility is having management that does not have the technical knowledge or understanding of the importance of accessibility. I will say I have lost a lot of job opportunities to somebody who did not do accessibility for, PM jobs or for upper management jobs. Somebody who had been managing but did not do accessibility. We're starting to hire people who are not qualified, and I'm sure people have a manager or maybe your skip manager who just doesn't understand accessibility at all. And According to a poll by 3 Play Media, 85% of leaders said that they were aware of what website accessibility is compared to less than 57% of managers. And that's kind of scary to think that you could flip a coin and a manager you'd be working with may or may not know how important what you do is or how hard it is or what you need and the resources. They might just not get it. And that's kind of scary. So for me, I like to say that burnout is a failure of management. I was failed by my upper management. If you are put into a situation where you are unable to succeed, you do not have the tools you need to succeed, it is because of upper management. It is not your fault that you don't have enough staff. It is not your fault that you can't be everywhere at once. It is a failure of management. And you can have the best manager, direct manager, and they can be amazing and support you, but you skip one or skip two, and that can be it for you. So next is a sense of futility or hopelessness. So that feeling that nothing you're doing is making a difference at your job and the effort you're putting in is disproportionate to the outcome. And that oftentimes comes to look like, we're bailing water constantly with tech debt of accessibility, but it just keeps filling in and we just keep finding more. And it feels really hopeless sometimes. Like, how am I ever going to catch up? And a lot of us feel that way, and it's not our fault. That's what the reality is oftentimes, especially if you're working in an organization that's new to accessibility. I always like to think of it like you have a full functioning body and you're trying to carve a new, organ in or a new hole into the side. Like you have to really rearrange things, and it's hard when it's a functioning system as is. So it can feel hopeless sometimes. And that, sense of futility and hopelessness, it can stem from a combination of not having the power or the resources to achieve your goal. And no one should fear taking time off. And when it comes to accessibility, I personally have been afraid to take time off, afraid of the decisions that will be made while I'm gone. And that's not normal for other people. I once had a content writer tell me, gosh, I just shut my laptop and I just turn it off and I'm good to go. And I just, go about my day. And I just couldn't fathom what that would feel like to be like, I'm good. Because the decisions that we make day in and day out affect the access to real people. Real people need access to this technology. There are real lives and real jobs on the line. So it's a little bit more than, oh, I just shut the laptop. So it's scary. And sometimes it feels like you can't take time off. So Devin Persing did a really good survey of accessibility specialists, and I have a clip from one of their things, one of their answers. So, do you feel like you have the resources and support you need to do so? Out of the 442 people, 44% said no, that they do not feel like they have the resources. And that's really scary to think about, that you have people doing an incredibly important job and, you know, and you have 16% that's not sure. If we lump that in with no, that's over half. Only 39% of people polled were like, yes, I have what I need to succeed, which is pretty scary. And, there's also the idea if I don't do it, no one else will. So those are people who accessibility might not be your main job. Maybe it's something you do as well. If I don't do it, who else will? On the screen right now, I have a picture of Louisa from Encanto saying, who am I if I can't carry it all? And I feel like a lot of us feel that way because we genuinely really care about the work that we do. And the unreasonable and ever-changing workload. A feeling of insecurity of how much work you're doing versus what's expected versus what is even reasonable to be doing. Again, I have a slide from Devin's research. And after you begin your job, did the scope of your role change? And 50% of people polled said it became bigger. So on top of already having incredible workloads, it became bigger. And that's really easy to see when we look at job descriptions. On the screen right now, I have a lead inclusive designer role I pulled offline, and it's got like about 15 bullet points, 10 bullet points, of a bunch of different things. I broke it down better. But this position is saying, you must implement requirements, consult provided guidance, make requirements for websites, create, manage agile, create scaling systems with dev. There are so many things. That's at least 9 different jobs in one job right there. And if we think about the average employee, they're only productive for 3.5 hours a day. And we know it takes at least 24 minutes to refocus on a task after distraction. So if you take those 3.5 hours of productivity, divide it by the 9 jobs, that gives us 23 minutes per job. And if you take an 8-hour workday and then you subtract out the 9 jobs times the 24 minutes it takes to refocus, that's 4.4 hours. So you're losing over half your workday just to switching tasks because we're wearing too many hats. And having to fight for a seat at the table. So the feeling of having to self advocate for not only your role, but the reason for being there. So it's never ending buy in. Like, even at a company that I was so supported, we had a great system. I still had to fight for a seat at the table. I'll never forget, I tell this story constantly. When I first started and we had less buy in, I will never forget. I created and started the mobile accessibility program. And I'll never forget, on top of not getting invited to the meetings I was supposed to be at, there was a solar eclipse back in like 2017, 2018. And I'll never forget just being yelled at on the phone, watching the solar eclipse, being like, wow, this is my life. Because they didn't want me there. They were like, we don't want accessibility to be a mobile thing. And that's just the truth a lot of times. We're not wanted at the table. And this is also very true for disabled people too, who are fighting for themselves to have a seat at the table. On top of having to prove accessibility is important to the organization, you must also prove it to your coworkers. So, for the lack of buy in, I have another sample from Devin's survey, and the buy in from senior leadership, that's 38% of people said that they were lacking that, but 29% of people said they were also lacking buy in from colleagues. On top of budget being 42% and workflow and processes being 46, to think that out of 100 coworkers of yours, 29 don't think you deserve to be there or don't think that you should have a seat at the table. That sucks. So it's also true that fields that include a helping others and advocacy are the highest likely to burn out. Psychiatrists, nurses, people who work in child welfare, people who are doing advocacy on top of work are the most likely to burn out. So that right there sets accessibility specialists up for a dangerous potential ending of burning out. And advocacy fatigue is real. It's an issue in the field, especially for those with disabilities and for accessibility in the field. Like, I never want to be on a call again and have somebody say, well, just like disabled people, like, do they even use this stuff? Like, I don't even care. And I'm like, hi, I'm that disabled person you don't care about. Like, I'm sure we've all been there. For those of us who are disabled and work in accessibility, you've been on that call when someone's like, well, let's just wait to get sued. Like, we don't really care. And you're like, thank you for telling me that you don't care about my access to banking, my access to shopping, my access to my medical records. I have a tweet on the screen from City of Florence that says, advocacy work is mentally draining. Advocacy fatigue is real. The things you see, the people you meet, the stories you hear, the backlash from people who have no clue will all literally take a toll on you. Never forget to take a minute, days, months, or even a year off to refuel. So let's talk about prevention. So I'll take a deep breath. So we just talked about why accessibility specialists are more likely to burn out. But let's talk about what we can do about it, because like not all hope is lost. It's not all futile, I promise. So I don't say these things to discourage people from doing accessibility, just the state and reality of where a lot of us are. Because a lot of us don't want to voice the concerns. We don't want people knowing that we're really struggling at our job. We all have this sense of, well, I must look perfect because everybody else looks perfect. So I must pretend because everyone else is doing great. It's just me. I'm the only one drowning, which isn't true. It's not the actual work that we do that's causing burnout. It's not the actual accessibility work itself. It's the environment that we are forced to do the work in that's the problem. It's not working with disabled people. It's not advocating for disabled people. It's the pushback. It's the buy-in. It's the lack of resources. That's what's burning us out, not the actual accessibility work. All hope is not lost. And the more we talk about the issues, and like these issues are important, the easier they will become to address. You have my permission to complain about how difficult the stuff we can do is. You have my permission. I know a lot of people, well, I don't want to complain about accessibility because it's so important. Like, it's okay to complain about your job. It's okay. I give you permission. We can simultaneously know how important accessibility is and how advocating for disabled people is so important, but we also need to give ourselves space to talk about it, to get that out. We cannot just bundle it in and hold it in. So what can we do as a community? So as a community, we can be transparent about how things are going at your job. I'm very transparent, or I was on Twitter very transparent, and a lot of people needed to hear that. We're like, I'm screaming into the void, and we're all screaming into the void. So the more transparent we all become about how we're doing at our jobs, the more other people will feel safe to be transparent as well. So next is find an accessibility professionals group for support. The accessibility community is amazing. My accessibility community, oftentimes it's the speaker community because like we see each other a lot. And I've made amazing friends through going to conferences. And as COVID lessens and as more people are vaccinated and as hopefully more conferences have better masking protocols, hopefully we can see each other in person more and get that human connection. But check in your area, in your city. Maybe there's meetup groups that are going on. There's a lot of resources online for that, but find your accessibility professionals group. I'm lucky that my friends in accessibility, for example, I played D&D with a group of accessibility specialists, Devin Persing, Sarah Higley, Adrian Roselli, Eric Bailey, and myself and my partner as well, who's not in accessibility, but he's great. And it was just great to be with a group of people who understood what we were coming, like where we're coming from, what we're dealing with. That D&D has sadly wrapped up. We beat the bad guy, but finding ways to still keep that community, keep that support, and also raise awareness about the difficulties of accessibility. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. It's hard. And I think people going into accessibility knowing like, hey, this job can be kind of tough is a lot better than people getting chewed up and spit out on the other side. Like I talk to so many people and we call them bright-eyed bushy-tailed, and they come like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about accessibility. You talk to them 6 months later and they're like dead inside. And if we had a better expectation, like this is going to be hard, it's not going to be rainbows and sunshine, maybe we could help people prevent and put boundaries in and prevent burnout. And if you're a manager, check in with your teams, like actually check in with your teams because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm doing so great. I'm so great. Everything's great. So be vulnerable as a manager and let your, let the people who work for you know, like it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to talk about it. So for me, I did a burnout sabbatical. I had to take a year off from work. On the screen, I have an assortment of pictures of Devin Persing, Sarah Higley, and I. As my mental health just deteriorated, and so did my back and my body, and then kind of came back. So I just have an assortment of cute pictures, and I have one of my partners censored because he doesn't like being shown online. But I'm lucky to have been in an area in Seattle to have accessibility professionals to be there with me while we went through burnout, while we went through quitting our jobs, while we went through everything. So I'm really grateful that I have a support group. And I think if you're looking for a support group, they're out there of other people in accessibility who are struggling as well. So in the office, what can we do in the office? So we have to destigmatize talking about mental health at work. As I burnt out more, I jokingly said I got more feral at work, but I started to be like, I'm not okay. I just cried for an hour. And people were like, yeah, actually, I'm not doing well either. Like the people you wouldn't even know weren't doing well. But as I became more feral, in reality, I couldn't mask anymore. But as I became more feral, people started talking to me about, oh, well, I'm not doing well. My mom just died. And like things that people just don't typically bring to work. And it gives you so much more empathy and understanding of what others are going through. So, talking openly about mental health, taking your mental health days, that's a huge thing. Everybody's kind of like scared to take their mental health days. Take them and set a precedent for your coworkers. And then letting mental health be the reason. We make up so many excuses on why we can or can't do something, or, oh, I'm so overloaded. Be truthful and say, I had a panic attack and I don't think I can handle that right now. I don't have the bandwidth for that. Or, I'm really struggling with this thing at home right now and I can't take on any more workload. Like, let's start letting mental health be the reason why we're saying no to things instead of skirting it and hiding it and tucking it away. Learning to pick your battles. It's a huge thing in accessibility. My manager, Gerard Cohen, tried and failed to try to teach me to, learn to take the L. You need to learn to take the L in accessibility. And I wish I would have been able to internalize that sooner, even though it was taught to me, that you might not get 100% of what you wanted into something, but even sometimes 20% is a win. And sometimes, next time you do it, you'll get 30, and the next time you get it 40, and it'll go up and up and up. So I think, learning to pick your battles is a huge lesson for accessibility specialists and people who are trying to avoid burnout. Every situation can be an educational one. So even though you're dealing with somebody who's frustrating at work, even though, the project isn't going how you want, every situation is a chance to educate, because I will never forget when my number one person that I battled with at work one day, close to when I stopped working for the company, spoke up about accessibility. Because after hearing me drone on about it for 5 years, they finally were like, yeah, actually, this is really important. And they finally had internalized it. It was like the end of a movie. It felt great. So never give up the opportunity to educate. And then when it comes to picking your battles, learn to compromise, compromise, compromise. We need to learn that you can't, like I said, maybe you can't get 100, but we need to take the wins when we can get them, because that's something that really burned me out, was trying to juggle everything and hold everything in place, when in reality I could have just focused on the thing that I could succeed in instead of the things that were pushing me down towards failure. And having a serious conversation with your manager. Make your manager aware of your concerns. I am overworked. I am overloaded. This is too much for me. Because we all need to start talking about it, because we need to break this notion that people who have mental health concerns aren't good coworkers and aren't good employees. We all have to, just a constant thing that we do. We hide our disabilities, we mask as much as possible. And some people don't have the privilege to mask their disabilities. And some people need you to be the person with invisible disabilities to make your manager aware of your concerns. Oh, I never thought about that mental health thing. You could be the person to do that. Asking for resources and continue to do so. Where are my resources for burnout prevention? What are my resources? Keep asking, because if you don't ask, they're never gonna appear. And there might be stuff at your job that you don't even know exists. And finally, for having serious conversations with your manager, my favorite thing is utilizing boundary statements. I didn't really need to use these at my job, but I have definitely heard of a lot of people having success with these. So the first one is, I'm excited for this new task. What on my current workload would you like me to deprioritize to accommodate this new project? Next, my plate is currently too full to take on this task. Who would you like me to offload some of my projects to? Next, while I understand this work is important, this task is outside of my job description. Would you like to reevaluate my job responsibilities and compensation at this time? Great things to say. And finally, this task is outside of my knowledge and current job description, but I would love to help advocate for a new team member to handle this responsibility. Through boundary statements, we can set boundaries. We can put a line in the sand and protect our mental health and protect ourselves from being overworked. We need to learn to say, no, I can't do this. I know it's important, but I can't. Or I don't want to learn a whole new skill when that should be someone else's job. So advocating for yourself through boundary statements is a big suggestion of mine. Health. So this is on the health side. So first of all, did you know mental health does fall under the ADA? So if you are in America, you do have access to resources. My favorite one is askjan.org. It is the Job Accommodation Network. On the screen right now, I just have a screenshot of some of the accommodations you can get for stress intolerance. Some of them are products, services, strategies. Did you know that the way your manager delivers information to you and it can be an accommodation for anxiety? I didn't know those things. I wish I would have known more about what accommodations I had access to, because with my brain injury, I understood, this chair that I'm sitting is from them. Thanks, guys. Ha. I understood my physical boundaries, but I didn't understand how many different things I could have integrated in to help my mental health. Next, I took 2 FMLA leaves. If you're in America, look into FMLA. Check it out. What do you have access to? I took 2 breaks. They didn't help, but they definitely slowed it. And I'm really happy and grateful for that. Like, I don't want to say they didn't help, but like I still burned out. But it really did. It gave me a chance to get a lot of medical stuff that I had going on top of burnout handled, and I'm grateful for that time. And last, my big suggestion, second to last, 30 minutes of out. When is the last time you did nothing for 30 minutes without taking in new information? The brain cannot process stress while it is also processing new stimuli. I did not know this. This has changed my life. When we're talking about out, you are to dance it out, talk it out, get outside, sweat it out, and sing it out. 30 minutes a day. We all need to be doing something to get stuff out. Talk to a friend, get it out, sweat it out, go to the gym, whatever movement feels good for your body, do it. Getting outside, do it. You know your limitations, you know your access. Find a way to get 30 minutes of out in your day so that your brain can process the stress. This is my number one. Please take this advice. And reevaluate your relationship with work. I think this is kind of my final thing for y'all. So, are you giving more than is reasonable to your job? Do you have things outside of your career that bring you joy? because I didn't. I didn't know who I was without my job. I didn't know who I was without being Shell, the accessibility specialist. I genuinely didn't know, and I'm still trying to figure out who that is. And is your job your main source of stress? Is it all you think about? Is it what you're thinking in therapy? Because, worst comes to worst, it might be time to reevaluate your job. If you have the privilege to do so, I know we're in a weird economic state because of capitalism, but is your figuring out, is your job the main source of stress for your life? What can you do about it? And when it comes to quiet quitting and just doing your job, like all of us do so much more than what our job actually asks for. We're doing advocacy. We're doing, on top of that, we're doing speaking engagements, or we're training people. That's not really in our job description. So, quiet quitting. Anyone who says quiet quitting is bad, they either want to benefit from your exploited labor, or they don't understand that their labor is being exploited. Protect your time, protect your peace. Conclusion. If you are feeling burnt out in your job right now in accessibility, know that you are not alone. I'm sure the chat has a lot of people saying, me as well. I feel this way. I can't see it, so I'll just take your word. I'll just take my word, my perceived notion about that. We're kind of all not doing very well right now. Next, you are not at fault for the way you're feeling. The system is working as designed, and it is designed to exploit labor. It is not your fault that things are understaffed, underpaid, that layoffs are happening. This is all out of your control. It's okay that you didn't get that ticket fixed. It's okay that that thing went to production without you touching it. It's okay that you went on vacation and unfortunately missed, a decision and the person made the wrong call. It's okay. We have to learn to let that go. The work you are doing can be difficult, stressful, and overwhelming, but never lose sight of the why and the who. We are doing this for disabled people. We are doing this for real people to give real access. In my previous role, I was working in a job that it would affect someone's employment. It was a tool that if you worked for a company, you had to use. And if they couldn't use that, they could lose their job or quit their job because it was too stressful. So never forget the people behind it. That's the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? It's to help people. 4, the work we do is important, but so is your own well-being. We can't all be martyrs. We all need to take care of ourselves because we need to be able to sustain doing this work for a long time. And if we're all sprinting, we're all going to burn out. So make sure to take care of yourself, make sure to let things go, and make sure to put boundaries up. And last, there are resources available to you in order to slow or mitigate burnout. Take advantage of them. Ask Jan, that's a great resource for you. Look into FMLA, look into what your medical leaves look like, look into, resources that potentially your work has. There are resources for you, and I encourage you, stop ignoring it and be like, oh, tomorrow. It creeps up on you, and then like me, you won't be able to take care of your body. You won't be able to shower yourself. You won't be able to feed yourself. You do not want to get to the level of burnout that I experienced, and I beg you, please check out the resources. And last but not least, if you're interested in hearing more from me, because I am currently too feral to return to a 9 to 5, I have decided to open up my own business. You can visit my website, shellelittle.com. Huge shout out to Eric Bailey for helping me with the website. I will soon have online classes. I'm going to do one-on-one mentorship, and then I will continue to do private speaking, be it conference or corporate. So on my website, you can find at the bottom, there is a form. It's not a mailer, it's just me. It's going to a list to me. There's no spam. I will alert you when my online classes go up. My first class is going to be a WCAG breakdown for designers. So if that kind of content interests you, if anything that I have spoken about in the past has ever interested you, I would love your support. If you can check that out and leave your email so I can inform you when I get around to finishing up my classes. Additional resources for everybody. Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily Nagoski and Amelia, sisters, amazing book. It focuses on the femme perspective, but I highly recommend anyone of any gender expression to check it out. Your Money or Your Life, 9 Steps to Transforming Your Life and or Your Money. I think I messed up the end of the title. It's a very famous book. It kind of helps you reevaluate what your goals are in life and step away from consumerism. And then last but not least, like I had recommended before, The Grind Culture Detox by Heather Archer. I'm not done with that one yet. It's a difficult read, but in the best way possible. So that's my time. Thank you so much. You can find me again on Twitter, Shell E. Little. Please tweet at me. I like to see what you have to say. Contact@shellylittle.com, or just visit my website to get in contact. So, yeah, thank you so much. I'm done.
And you did a fantastic job. So one thing you will get a copy, Shell's going to get a copy of the chat. And Shell, over and over and over again, what we kept hearing was, thank you for making this a safe space with your conversation. And a lot of people appreciated in the chat. We had a lot of people talking about their personal situations too. So there was a couple notes that I wanted to make sure I passed on to you specifically. They came up in the chat. Gratitude for Shell's courage in building this talk and sharing a personal story. Thank you. Signed, someone who's recovering from a 2-week panic attack a year ago. So helping somebody get through that as well. And then somebody else commenting the panic people are feeling right now is a symptom of the trauma they experience. Be extra kind to yourself this evening and do things to help treat yourself and a bigger trigger your dopamine. Dark chocolate, bubble bath. And I love the fact in your talk, you did talk about that, right? Of taking care of yourself, and taking care of your body and how it needs to be taken care of, regardless of what it is. We even had a participant, Sean, ask of what his neighbor's going to think when he's dancing and singing down the street. He already had people volunteer to be there with him when he does that. So,
Yes. Yeah.
So a couple questions. We'll keep going through it on this one. So one of the things you do mention is that you're doing one-on-one mentoring. One of the questions that did come up is, so when you're mentoring people who are new to the industry, coming into being accessibility professionals because they're interested in it, what advice do you give to your new mentees? Because to your point, you don't want to scare them off, but you also
Yeah.
want to make it realistic for them at the same time, right?
So for me, what I like to get to know, I like to get to know the why. That's the
Yeah.
most important thing. Why are you in this? Because if you hold on to that, that's the most important thing. But my advice to people, typically when we're getting into, I want to start an accessibility career, I want to get going in there, is to protect yourself as much as possible. So working on those boundary statements, working on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Oftentimes, when I've worked with people in the past, uh, they blame themselves for example a managerial fail, and learning what is normal and what isn't normal to be expecting, and even just to talk to somebody else who's in accessibility to say, hey, I went through that, that's not okay, you should talk to your skip manager about that. Just having somebody there to know, that's not normal or that is normal. But definitely I think when I start working with somebody, it's about protecting peace. It's about what's happening. What do you want out of this? What are your goals? Why are you in this? And from there, building a plan to be like, here's what I'm willing to accept. Here's what I'm not willing to accept. Here are the accommodations that I'm going to get, that I'm not going to get. And typically, working through advice like that, I'm not an expert on everything in the whole entire world. I never will claim to be, but my goal is to support people who are maybe scared to make the choice. I've worked with a lot with college students who are entering the field. We need those students to enter the field. We need those people. So yeah, that's kind of like where I start off with, is just kind of getting to know people and know the why.
So the other question was specifically around people who are neurodivergent. Do you have, I know you shared a lot of resources with us, and I appreciate especially the website about accommodations, like you said, that we possibly aren't aware of. Is there any resources that you would say are specific for people who share that neurodivergency, and things that they should look at, or things that you say, yeah, this is something that really should be your top of mind when you're looking at it?
Yeah, a resource that I love is How to ADHD. That's a fantastic resource to check out. There's lots of how to work with your brain, not against it, and shed a lot of the blame that we have for neurodivergency, where I suck, I'm not smart, I can't do this. And it's like, no, it's actually because I don't have systems built in the place to help me achieve these goals. Another content creator who has a lot of content that I love is Black Girl Lost Keys. Fantastic content. I think her name's Renee. Makes wonderful content on how to just function in ADHD, function in work, and have boundaries and respect. I would recommend those two resources very highly.
How about one person asked specific, and I think this is interesting, and any tips about taking those mental health vacation days their situation, they know someone who's autistic and struggle with those routine changes. Is there
Mhm.
things that you did or things that you were aware of that helped you with that change of routine that you needed? Or as you mentioned, you took some FLA days. Is that
Mhm.
how you can do some transition, or was there other things that you found that help you transition into that I am going to take mental health days because they're
Mhm.
important to me?
I think for me, because I have ADHD and neurodivergencies like that, to me,
Mhm,
it's all about dopamine. So having a plan, like when I take my day off, this is my
mhm,
plan. I will go to this restaurant that I don't normally go to because they're open at weird hours. Or I have gotten into puzzles because we're looking for non-screen tasks, so non-screen hobbies. And with the dexterity issues I have in my hands, puzzles have been great.
yeah,
So having, oh, I'm going to start this puzzle or I'm going to start this book. So making a reward for doing the thing that's kind of scary, like taking that time off. But when you take that time off, you're going to go to that boba shop you've always wanted to go to. So for me, I found it, setting a goal, even a small goal, like
yeah,
I'm going to sleep in or like I'm going to take a bath, like things to look forward to that will be a reward for taking that day off really, really helped me because I struggled so much to like, I felt like I was just like latched onto my job and even kind of like letting go was really hard. And I wish I would have done it sooner. I probably could
yeah.
have prevented the burnout had I taken FMLA when I needed to and not when I had no choice.
Well, and I love your idea of really setting a goal that you look forward to. So to your point, I've never gotten to try that restaurant because it's
Hmm.
always closed when I'm off of work and it's
Hmm.
something cool that I could do. So I love how it's actually setting yourself up a personal goal that's fun at the same time,
Hmm.
right? So, do you find you talked a lot about working in a corporate environment. We have a question over here of someone who's an independent contractor. Do you
Hmm.
do you find that burnout, or some of the research that you've looked at? Do you find that burnout is different from an independent contractor versus someone who always works in a corporate environment, or do you see that occurring very similar to the
Um,
environment?
it looks very different from what I've read and what I've researched because a lot of burnout from corporate is a lot of it's lack of control. So you are
Hmm.
literally being told what to do, what you should prioritize. Your needs are being ignored by a system and you are a cog. And it feels really, all engulfing versus oftentimes when it comes to burnout with people who are working independently, it's because of lack of resources, lack of help. Like for me personally, I've just started this venture of working independently, but I have a personal assistant named Rachel Dunn. I could not do anything without Rachel. Rachel
Hmm.
has helped me with all of my barriers. So when it comes to burnout for people who are independent, oftentimes it's the pressure of money, it's the pressure of scarcity, and it's the pressure of being the only one that has to answer everything.
Hmm.
So, the problems are they both kind of end the same way, but they are a bit different. So, if you are able to get help in your independent work, even if you pay somebody to just work for 2 or 3 hours, it's amazing what somebody who can help you can do in just 2 hours to make your life so much better. Like I wouldn't be done with my website. This talk wouldn't be done. Like I don't know what I don't know where I would be without Rachel right now. So I highly recommend. I mean, but obviously it is a privilege to do so, but supporting other people who also are working independently, it's a really great feeling. So,
Yeah.
but yes, to answer
Well,
the
and
main
I
question, they are
and I
different.
think that's awesome. And the fact is, the point you made, Shell, too, is having somebody even help you out a little bit can do a lot because it can
Hmm.
open up some windows that you don't now have. So I'm going to reiterate, this talk will be available for rebroadcast here after Shell's slides were. A couple of comments also made, Shell, is a couple of people are going to make this their pep talk when they come down
Pep
again.
talk.
So way to go, Shell. Since we're running out of time here, I'm going to give you the last word. If you had to pick one thing that really should come forward to all of us in your talk, what would that be for us?
You are engulfed in a community of people who care. I'm gonna cry. Oh my gosh. If you're struggling, there are people who understand why you are struggling. Reach out for help. You are not alone. There are a lot of resources available to you, and especially the accessibility community between the Slack, between LinkedIn and Twitter. There are places to get access to other accessibility specialists who understand you and feel you. You are not alone. I think that would be my biggest takeaway.
And I cannot say, Shell, that this talk puts a big exclamation point on today's XCon. Thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for being vulnerable and telling us your story. And I can tell you, myself included, A lot of people were encouraged by what you said and shared, and made it a safe place for us to share resources and feelings. And I can't thank you enough with that.
Mm.
To the participants, I hope you had a great first day at XCon. I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks again to Shell, and just making it the end of the day that we all hope for. So thank you very much,
Mhm.
and everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you.